So we're going to talk about the mechanics underlying that and going to give you some tools to empower you to face the challenges that you have in your life. Okay? But first I have a question. How many of you know what to do, but you're not doing it? You know what to do, but you're not doing it. Come on, keep the hands up. Let's see. Yeah, sometimes? Pretty much everybody, sometime. We know what to do, and yet we do something completely different. So why is that? Are we lacking information? No, because we know what to do, right? So why is it that you know what to do, but you don't do it?
Oh yeah, it's double organic.
See what's coming, so you can predict and react and respond. And I call that the pasture. Because what we often respond to is our dents, which were created in the past. And although we're looking down the field and we think we're looking at the future, we're not. We can't actually see the future. The future is unknown. If you can see it, it's the past. And to make that make a little bit more sense, have you ever looked up at the stars? Did you know that the stars you're seeing, some of them have been gone for hundreds of millions of years? They exploded, and we're just now getting the light. The night sky, you're not seeing those stars and planets as they exist. You're seeing the past. And that's also true on a very small scale, but it's much, 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 much tinier. It takes time for light to travel. It takes time for information to travel. And then it takes time for my brain to process that information and create an image and then tell me what the image is and then for me to have a thought about it. By the time I actually look at your face and think and have a thought about it, probably a second has passed. That's old, outdated information. But when it comes to the pasture, when we move towards things, we're not really moving towards things. We're moving back into our past. We project, we take our past and we throw it up into the future. We paint everything in to flatten or to smooth out. I don't understand this, it's unknown, I need to explain it, I need to figure it out. I need to flatten it so I can look down and say, I know what this is. I'm safe because I know what this is. I've mowed the grass, there's nothing hiding, there's no predators, there's no threats. I'm perfectly safe in the pasture with all the other sheep. With no future, really. All the goals that you have are based on your dents in the past. And those dents are like, I want to be famous, I want to be thin, I want to be this, because I was dented and I feel bad about it, and if I can somehow overcome that, then everything will be better. So you're not moving into the future, you're trying to fix the past. And you keep looking for evidence to show that, yes, look, my past is changing. And there's one more chore. The aperture, which is right under your feet. That's the A-hole. We want to open up that aperture. We want to open up that A. Because that is where we find the I. That is where we find ourself. And we're on a team, we're on that playing field. We're there as the team, but we need to be an individual on that team. We need to bring our strengths to the table. So we open up that aperture, we fall into the A-hole, we see who we really are down there at the bottom. That's where change happens. That's where transformation begins, when you open up that aperture and fall into the A-hole. So now here's a little tour of the brain, so you can see how that actually happens and what it looks like. Our brain, I say our because we all have one, has several different regions. And those regions work together to create a sense of consciousness and a sense of self. It's a construct. And our dents are a part of that. Your identity is a construct. It's not true. And you didn't choose it. We've got, in the back of our head, we've got a brain stem, which is a reptilian brain. All reptiles have a brain stem. Most simple creatures have some kind of brain stem. So we've got that. And then on top of that, we've got a mammalian brain, otherwise known as the limbic system. And that's where most of our emotions are processed. So in that limbic system, or in that mammalian brain, there are 3 types of mammals that exist there. We've got the mammals that are angry and aggressive. We've got the mammals that are scared and anxious. And we've got the animals that are hopeless and distressed. And all human beings fit into one of those 3 categories. All of you. Whenever our mammalian brain is confronted by something, one of 3 things is most likely, not always, but most likely to come out. Some of you, your mammalian brain responds with anger and aggression. Some of you respond with fear and anxiety. Some of you respond with hopelessness, despair, and distress. I'm that guy. I'm that mammal. I'm the one that's just depressed. So, fight, flight, or freeze. All human beings are dominantly one of those. And that is our mammalian brain. We didn't choose that. We can't control that. It's automatic, it's genetic. They call it your temperament in psychology. So we got the reptilian brain, which I didn't describe. That's black or white. Black or white, on or off. It's really, really primitive. So it either wants to mate with something, or it wants to eat something, or it wants to fight something. That's about it. That's all the reptilian brain knows about. It's just on or off, black or white, and it's super fast. It's the fastest part of the brain. Mammalian brain, a little bit slower. It processes things more, adds emotional tones to things. And then we have the primate brain. So apes have this primate brain. We share that with them. It's the cortex of the brain. Great, and the cortex means bark in Latin, so it's the outside of the brain. When you look at an image of a brain, all the squiggly lines, that's the cortex. That's the outer layer. Right? That's the primate brain. And in that cortex, we can process higher functions. We can do more. There's more types of information that we can interact with. A little bit slower than the mammalian brain. And then humans have a prefrontal cortex right up here behind the forehead and behind the eyes. That's the most advanced part of our brain, and it's what makes us uniquely human. That part of the brain is the slowest of all. That part of the brain is where you live consciously. That part of the brain is where your identity is experienced. But that's not where your identity is created. It's just where your identity is experienced. And this is often why we feel like we don't have control over our actions. Because these other more primitive regions of the brain are pulling the strings, and the conscious part is just watching it happen. So, it gets even more complicated. There's a right and a left. Now, you've heard about right brain, left brain. Most of that is not true anymore. But there are some aspects of it that are still true. This really advanced human part, the prefrontal cortex, that does have a very different right and left side. The right side is integrated with our mammalian brain. The right side has a map of the body in it. So the right side is deeply integrated with your physical and emotional experience. This is where metaphor is processed. This is where facts are processed and experienced. Because the body is getting sensation And this side is really intimately connected, so that sensation is, these are the facts. This is the data that I'm getting. The left side is not connected to the rest of the brain. It's loosely connected only to the right prefrontal cortex. It's not connected to the mammalian brain or the reptilian brain, not connected to the body, not connected to the emotions. So the left side is where language is processed. It's where we are logical. It's where we are linear. This is the narrator in the brain. It's kind of like the observer, the part of our brain that tells the story of us, keeps track of our identity. But it's not connected to how we feel. So it makes up stories about our identity. It makes up stories about why we did what we did. It doesn't really know. It's guessing. It's kind of looking at the information that the right is sending over and saying, well, that's okay, but you know, it's not a great story. Okay, yeah, I see you got some facts over there, but those facts are kind of inconsistent with my belief system. So we're just going to ignore those and we're going to change it. We're just going to fudge. Which is why you can have somebody call themselves an environmentalist and not be vegan. The greatest impact you can make on the environment and resource use is to go vegan. Changing light bulbs and conserving water and driving a hybrid pales in comparison. It is an embarrassingly small difference when you drive a hybrid and put a water filter on. When you go vegan, it is a dramatic shift in resource use. But yet people feel perfectly comfortable calling themselves environmentalists because of this left side. It makes up stories that are inconsistent with the facts.
So with these sides, we build our egos.
You build your ego on the left side, yes. So the left side is about approach. The right side is about withdrawal.
Left side of the brain.
Left side of the prefrontal cortex, the conscious part. So the left side is where positive emotions are processed. The right side is where negative emotions are processed. And in that right side, because it's connected to the body, if your body doesn't feel well, the right side is saying, oh, I got some facts here. I can feel my body. It doesn't feel good. And the left side, because it's not connected, will just ignore it. Some people are right side dominant. Some people are left side dominant. Extroverts are left side dominant. Introverts are right side dominant. It doesn't mean that an introvert doesn't use their left side. It just means that it's not used as much as the right side is. And the same in reverse. It's not that one side is completely turned off. Although in some people, it can be. There are some illnesses where people's right brains really don't function, and they're totally in the left. In fact, they're now saying that autism is an extreme left-sided experience. A complete disconnection from feeling, a complete disconnection from a social experience, which is processed on the right.
But, sorry to interrupt.
It's okay.
What could you say? Because I consider myself more extroverted, but I'm also very emotional. Like, I'm totally connected to my emotions. If I don't feel well, like I can say it or I express myself.
Okay, so expressing yourself and being connected to your emotions is actually a state of approach. A withdrawal state is where I feel my emotions, but I'm overwhelmed by them. I can't give them language because language is on the left. So somebody on the right side, I have the emotions, I feel them, I just don't know how to put the words to them. I'm scared of letting people know about them. So they get stuck and they don't speak. They don't communicate. They just feel it. A left-sided person, all about approach, they're getting the information
on the right, and then they vocalize it very quickly, very approach. They don't consider. So the right side considers things deeply. The left side, boom, 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 just talks to you. So an extrovert can walk into a room and just talk, 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 talk. An introvert walks into a room and I don't know what to say, and I don't know which person to talk to, and I don't know if they like me, and I've got sweat on my shirt. Maybe they might notice that. So it's all about consideration and withdrawal. So, because we have these different regions of the brain, that have different desires, different intentions, different agendas, even different personalities. The right and the left actually have different personalities. They have different desires, believe it or not. This is something that they discovered in split brain patients who've had their brain cut in half because they had epilepsy, and that was a surgery they did to stop the seizures. They would split the brain in half, and the sides would operate completely independent of each other. And what they found was that what the right side wanted was completely different than what the left side wanted. They were like two different people living in one head. And we all have this. It's just not as obvious because our brain hasn't been split. So we've got a reptile living in here. We've got a mammal that wants to fight, flight, or freeze, depending on your genetics. We've got a chimpanzee in here that's monitoring the social environment. That's what the primate brain generally does. It looks at social groups and rank and things like that. And then we've got the human brain, which is split in half on these two sides, and each one wants a different thing. The right side's like, here are the facts, and the left side's like, screw the facts. Let's party. Or the right side dominates the left side and says, it's the facts, man. Life sucks. Look at America. Look what's happening. Look at this. Look at that. I'm just going to be depressed. I give up. Look at the state of my body. There's nothing I can do. I've been depressed all my life. I can never be a runner. I can never get up in front of people and speak. Look at the facts. Get real. In studies of self-assessment, how accurately you rank yourself or rate yourself, on your driving ability, on your intelligence, on your attractiveness, on many, many criteria, they have found that the only group of people that accurately assesses themselves is the depressed. People that are depressed are totally right side. The left side still works because they can speak, but it's really, really down-regulated. Depressed people are very accurate in their self-assessment. They're totally honest. People on the left side, they're like, yeah, I'm a better driver than most people. In fact, 80% of the population are left-sided. They're extroverts, 80%. And they all think they're better than average. They all think they're better looking than average. They all think they're better drivers than average. They think they're better at everything. In fact, there was a study of college professors. 94% of them thought that they were better than the average professor. That is statistically impossible. So that left side wants to make you think that you're better than you are. And again, this is where positive emotions are. So this is why you see people eating pizza and drinking beer and happy about it. The right side is like, dude, look at the facts. And the left side's like, screw it, man, let's party. We're having fun. Body looks sexy. Look at that beer belly. Whoa. Damn, I look good.
So that's like the id. That's like our id, basically. The right.
Well, the id is more primitive if you want to go Freudian. It's the more back of the brain, the brain stem and the mammalian brain.
But it's the pleasure principle, isn't it?
Well, it's not so much. That's also the mammalian brain is where the reward center and the pleasure systems are. This is the super ego. This is the observer, the narrator that tells our story. The left side wants to tell a story that is always better than it actually is. Because for most of human existence, it was not 2015. Did you know that? That's shocking news, but it's true. For most of human existence, it was not 2015. We didn't have iPhone 6s or Samsung Galaxy 25s or whatever they're up to now. We didn't have internet. We didn't have fans and air conditioning. We didn't have microphones and chairs. Most of human existence, 99.9926% of human existence. My left brain just made that up, by the way. For the vast majority, life sucked. It sucked. Can you imagine living in Scotland 2,500 years ago? Really? Can you imagine what that would be like? Living in the desert Southwest thousands of years ago, how hard that would be? Just to find food, like you better carb the F up. Where's the food? Where are the carbs out here? It's a desert. So our brain adapted or evolved to make us delusional so that we would want to have babies. Because if the right side was dominant, why the heck would you ever want to bring a kid into this? This sucks. I don't want to have babies. And I'm looking at that guy's baby over there and he's crying and pooping and puking. He's not getting any sleep. Why the heck would I ever want to have a baby and bring them into this summerfest? The only reason that human beings are alive today is because the left brain is totally delusional. That's why we persist. And that's great in really hard times. But man, in 2015, does it cause a lot of problems? Because we're ignoring the facts. And we're going off a cliff, personally and socially. And when the right brain speaks up and says, hey guys, maybe we should consider, carbon emissions. Maybe we should consider, the diet you're eating. And like, shut up. Somebody will fix it. They'll come up with a pill. They'll put a bubble over the planet. It's all good. Don't worry about it. The left brain's just making up all kinds of stories. The scientists will fix it. They'll have a drug. It's all good. They'll have a drug that you can eat whenever you want and you'll be 20 years old again. It's coming. Left brain loves stories like that. Meanwhile, everybody's going off the cliff. If you've seen the movie Wall-E, this is where we're headed. So, all right, that's the makeup, okay? We've got these different brains, and they really are different brains. We call it one brain, but it's many different brains. It's like DOS, and MS-DOS, and Windows 95, and Windows 2000, and Windows 2009, all of the operating systems jammed into one computer at the same time. Can you imagine having DOS starting to run programs and issue commands when you're trying to do some video editing on your computer? And these like primitive programs start running and it's like, whoa, what are you doing? I'm trying to surf the internet. Why are you running this ancient program? This is my argument against intelligent design, is that the brain is so not intelligently designed. You get rid of the old operating systems before you put the new one in. But that's not what happened in here. They're all still in there. And that's why we struggle. That's why we have a hard time with our diets. That's why we have a hard time moving and exercising. That's why we have a hard time in relationships, feeling comfortable with other people, expressing ourselves authentically with other people. Because of all of these competing regions that all want to do different things. And they literally fight with each other. They fight for blood supply. And some of them will steal the blood from other parts. When you're under stress, when you are triggered and you have a stress response, your mammalian brain says, I'm not giving any blood to that human brain because that human brain hogs most of the blood. It's too damn slow. It thinks too much and it's delusional. So if we allow that part of the brain to have blood, we're not going to survive this moment. If you're about to get into a car accident, can you contemplate what color the car is? Or, oh, do I know my insurance number? Or, I don't know, if I get in an accident in this outfit, what are the paramedics going to think? Like, if our conscious brain, if our human brain was involved in those last-minute, near-death experiences, we'd be dead every time. So the mammalian brain shuts the human brain off. And says, I got this. I'm taking over. You're too slow and you're ridiculously foolish. And it controls us. And we fight, flight, or freeze. So whenever you're under stress, again, for most of human existence, stress meant that something, life or death, was probably happening. Now, traffic gets us stressed and there's no life or death there. I have to wait in line for food here. That gets me stressed. Is that life or death? No. Unless you haven't had your 30 bananas a day yet, and then maybe the undercarving really... So, when that stress response happens in us in 2015, the threat is almost never deadly. Almost never. Sometimes it is, but almost never. And when that happens, our mammalian brain turns off the front. And when it turns off the front, we make really bad decisions. We make really impulsive and reactive decisions. Because that's what the mammalian brain and the reptilian brain are really good at. The reptilian brain is like instant reaction, and the mammalian brain adds some emotion to it. It's like, okay, let's color that reaction with some emotion. What do you want to color it? Blue or red? This is why it's not your fault. Whatever you do, whatever you struggle with, whatever you're challenged by, it's not your fault. The part of your brain that is listening to me talk has very little to do with it. But there are ways to empower it. One of the worst things you can possibly do is to fight those regions of your brain. To try to suppress the craving, to try to suppress the desire. That's the absolute worst thing you can do. To use willpower, to be determined. I'm not going to eat the pizza. Or if you're natural hygiene, I am not going to eat the slightly boiled kale. Over my dead body. Doing that,
Say 100% raw.
I need to be 100% raw. Wait a minute. Did that heat up in the sun? Did that durian sit in the sun too long? Did that dehydrator go over 105 because it needed to hurry up and make it in the kitchen? If we try to suppress our cravings, we engage something that psychologists call ironic rebound. I like to think of it as a beach ball. Everybody know what a beach ball is? Inflatable ball that you play in the water. Anybody ever held one in a pool? Anybody ever tried to push it under the water in the pool? Anybody ever tried to take something filled with air and to submerge it in the water? What happens? It comes right out. But you can hold it under there for a little while if you're strong enough and if it's small enough, right? You can hold it there, but does it ever stop trying to come out? No. So you hold it there for 5 minutes. Okay, I got through 5 minutes. It still wants to come out. And eventually you get tired. The brain is just like that beach ball. When you try to suppress a craving, you engage ironic rebound, which means that the craving is going to come back even stronger than it was before. And because you've been using so much energy to try to suppress it, your conscious gas tank is now empty. And you will have no power to not only stop it, or to slow it down. So if you wanted one bite of something and that was the craving you were trying to suppress it will cause you to eat the whole thing. As it rebounds back up, it bursts through the surface. And there's a reason for this. Because there's a region in our brain that's sole job is to pay attention to things that are important, to things that are dangerous. That's its job, to look out for things that have been deemed dangerous. And if you say, I can't have that, this is bad, that part of your brain says, ooh, I need to pay attention to this. She just said it's bad. So I'm going to keep a watchful eye on this, which means that it keeps it in your conscious. It keeps it there. And the more that it keeps it there, the more present it becomes, the more it eats at you. Because you told your brain, this is important. This is dangerous. So it's like, okay, I'm going to do a really good job. I'm going to do a really good job. I'm going to make sure that you pay attention to that thing. So trying to suppress a craving actually increases the craving. The worst thing you can do is say, I can't have it. So what do? You take this conscious part up here, and you do what it's really built for. To monitor, to observe, to describe. That's what it's really good at. Not fighting. It's so weak compared to the other regions of the brain. It can't win a fight. Has anyone ever tried to win a fight with a small child who's crying and wants something?
Yes.
You've won?
Oh, number one.
When a kid is screaming and they want something, a parent will eventually give in. You can't beat that part of the brain. And children don't have a fully developed prefrontal cortex. It's not fully developed until you're 25. So the mammalian brain is more dominant until you're 25. But it's a scale, so it's not as if at 24 you're completely mammalian, but it fully developed at 25. So children are primarily mammalian and a little bit primate, like little monkeys running around. So we don't want to fight it because we can't win that fight. We want to talk about it. We want to.
I'm proud to announce the release of my free raw recipe app. Do you want over 100 original raw food recipes in the palm of your hand? Click the links to download or search Double Organic on your phone. Oh yeah, it's Double Organic. Did you know I offer raw food coaching? Comment, like, share, and subscribe. Got epic recipes, fitness, and raw food motivation. Connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, and of course, YouTube. Whoa, look at all those recipes. Those look tasty. Give me some of that.